Good evening, everyone. How are you? Thanks for joining us. I think we'll obviously give a few moments for all our adoring fans to join us online as well. There's one there already. David's mum's online with us.
Oh, there you go. Really?
How are you, David? You ready to roll on this one?
I'm ready. I'm very excited by this. Very excited indeed.
Sort of? Really? Honestly?
Well, I'm just very professional. I just realised my laptop's going to run out of battery, so I'm like, everything else.
Brilliant. Well, in that case, so Tom, if you find yourself on your own, mate, just fill in when we come back.
You know, you guys need to go. I'll do a tap dance routine and drink rum until you're back on.
Right, come on, let's stop messing around. Thank you very much, Tom, for joining us this evening. We were kind of joking between ourselves. It does feel a bit like that you've only literally just got this spice rum live on your website, like within what, days?
Days, literally. It is so fresh out of the box. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
I put the sort of like the sort of the warning. Hey, save the date, thing come alive, and then like I saw your marketing department might have been kicked into action because there's like an Instagram account followed us shortly thereafter.
Yeah, we hadn't even got. That's right. Genuinely, on Tuesday morning after you put your you put a sort of an ad up about this chat this week, and the marketing team were like, "Tom, what's this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, going live on Thursday night, gang," and they were like, "Okay, so what do we need to do?" And I was like, "Well, we probably need the Instagram account live and a bit more so that people can tune in." But they've scrambled. I let a grenade off, thanks to you, Peter, and it's all good.
You know what? Okay, so I'm going to say we had a chat the other day. If the marketing team are listening, I'm going to blame David entirely for this because he was the one who fixed up the date. I just said yes, let's do it. No, that's fine. It's cool. Right. So what we've got, so I think we've been talking a lot about spiced and flavoured rums and things at the moment, and I hosted my own Spice Rum Club a few weeks ago, and it was like, it's a really popular category at the moment. David and I seem to have been talking about it quite a lot, and so it was funny how when we did our sort of review of the World Rum, the UK rum competition, we did a little feature on botanicals and specifically because we think there's a lot of innovation out there. Got the nod from you like shortly after, you might be interested in this, and things have moved very, very quickly since. We're sitting here with with advanced sort of release bottles and things and plenty to try and also with a promise to like not talk about it until you did actually launch it. But here we are. Yeah, this is really cool. So
I was watching you guys that night. I was watching you whilst making my dinner, and I said in the comments, lads, I've got something tasty for you to try.
It's amazing. Very cool. So it attracts me on a few points, but I think perhaps we should sort of take a step back. And for the rum people that are dialing in, because obviously Dave brings and yourself bring all the kind of gin people. So like Warner's is a very well-known brand in the gin world, I would suggest. But from the rum point of view, maybe you'd be kind enough to give us a little bit of background about yourself and what brings you to this point in life.
Yeah, so I'll try and do this as quickly as possible. But we decided to do some farm diversification, and that was in 2009-10. And we didn't know what that was going to be. And the penultimate idea, after about 6 months of looking at God knows how many different types of food-linked or farm-linked businesses that we looked at, the penultimate idea was producing essential oil. So we were going to grow lavender, rosemary, and we were going to distill them and extract the oils and then sell the essential oil. The evolution of that was, what do you do with the still for the rest of the year? You can make booze. Why are we've lost David? Why are we talking about flowers? Let's make booze. Was the basic, the exciting thing, and as avid consumers of, but had no experience of the industry, we sort of approached it with no blinkers. And if you think back then, independent distilling in the UK was really in its infancy. It wasn't really a big thing. 130 distilleries launched in the last 12 months, whereas back then there were probably 2 independents in the new wave, which was Sipsmith and Chase. And the Sipsmith boys were in London, and Chase was in the countryside doing vodka. And our first business plan because we didn't know anything, was we're going to make everything. We're going to make rum, brandy, tequila, whiskey. You know, this is bloody brilliant. And we realised early on that we had to focus, and we realised that we were not going to be able to make an aged spirit because we were bootstrapping this. You know, it was we were funding it. We couldn't borrow anything. Actually, that's a lie. We got a very small loan from the banks because we were peak recession. So back then, the banks were just not lending. We managed to borrow 21 grand. That was the maximum we could borrow back then to get the wheels turning. The rest was savings that I lived in a bedsit for 6 months prior to launch, just banking my salary at the time. And I was in the produce industry. So, farmer's son, always been involved in sort of agriculture or dealing with farmers around the world. I lived in East Africa before that for a bit as a coffee buyer. So I've always been involved in food, flavour, ingredients, that kind of stuff. So I've got a perverse knowledge of fruit varieties from all around the world, depending on what you're eating at what time of the year. I can tell you pretty much where it comes from. And the really exciting bit was when we decided to focus. Hello, David. And that focus took us into gin, through initially looking at vodka, because vodka in 2010-11 was enormous. It was 2 billion of the white spirits market. Gin was 800,000. But actually, the more we looked at vodka, it was something that we didn't really drink, and it's quite uninspiring unless you really geek out and you're really into it. For people like us, which are foodies, we're about flavour. It really didn't set us alight in terms of a product proposition to get involved in. Whereas gin got under our skin because you could harness the countryside around you, and being, we're blessed, we're privileged to be on a farm, which gives us a smorgasbord of Mother Nature that surrounds us to play with, and that's really driven the gin part of our business to a point. And I'll skip over a lot of it, but we're now, I think, we're the largest independent gin distillers in the UK in terms of the craft vanguard that started, the crescendo that took us to rum, and there's loads we can talk about gin. I don't want to bore everyone on gin, but the crescendo that brought us to rum, we made a gin in 2019 that the challenge was, and we did it in collaboration with the lads at the Gin Foundry, to make a gin, all the ingredients, apart from a bit of juniper that we had to import, came from the farm, within 3 miles of the farm. Now, that's no mean feat, because yeah, you can make a gin, but getting a gin that drinks and is balanced, using ingredients only from a bee's flight away from the farm, which is a 3 mile radius, that's the hard part. So the really hard part, I mean, you can create herbal notes really easily. You can create citrus notes through stuff like lemon verbena and lemon balm and lemon thyme. To create spice from the British countryside, that's tough. And that's where we had to get really inventive. And Connor, who was working for us at the time, he's now working for a whiskey blenders business in London. But he went out and dug dandelion roots to make a dandelion coffee. The other spice that we created was actually applewood. So actually charring applewood makes quite a nice spice note come through in the distillation. But the dandelion root was one of the other spice that we created. And we didn't create it. It's a thing that's been drunk for dandelion tea, dandelion coffee. It's a coffee substitute. I think World War I, World War II, people would roast dandelion root to make a coffee substitute. And you end up with this, the flavour profile that it would pass as a coffee. It's kind of quite a caramelled coffee flavour. It's got less. It's like coffee with coffee mate in it, in a way. It takes it to a smoother sort of, it coats your mouth, a bit more caramel than sweet, and that's probably the natural saps that are in the root itself. Which I found out the other day, Continental Tires are now propagating Russian dandelion, because you can actually, Russian dandelions are much, much bigger and are full of natural rubber. So they're actually starting, there's a load of research going into Russian dandelion and creating car tires of the future from dandelion. So it's going to be a wonder crop, guys. So everyone needs to get involved with dandelion. But the dandelion coffee was the inspiration for this, which is Trash and Treasure. it was harnessing that spice from the British countryside, and we'd used it. And I was like, it's such a cool story. And we do a lot with bees at the farm. We do a lot with the environment. We've got lots of bees at the farm and apiaries, and our full-time environmental and sustainability manager, Johnny. You know, dandelions are a mega crop for bees because they are a huge source of pollen right at the start of the forage season for bees. So really integral part of that forage process. And for all of those reasons, we just, playing around, and I'm like, what else can we do with the spiced rum? Let's try and make some spiced rum. So that was the catalyst to get involved with the spiced rum category. And as I said to you, Pete, and I think I said it to you as well, David, we almost feel cheeky getting involved because we've been so focused on gin. But I think what we're trying to bring to spiced rum or spiced botanical rum, and I totally get what you said to me, Pete. It's not rum. Totally agree with you. Spiced rum is its own thing. But what we're trying to bring is everything that we do with botanicals and flavour and that expertise and our farm-born ingredients. We want to bring that to rum. That's what we've tried to do with this product, and it's really cool. And it was called something else this time last year, but luckily I got a pretty strong challenge from the team because it was going to be called Rooted or Roasted and Rooted, and obviously. Rooted, there are alcoholic connotations to rooted and also sexual connotations to rooted, and roasted and rooted is even worse. So we decided that probably wasn't the best brand name to go with. And Trash and Treasure came from the fact we're using weeds and waste. So it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder is the sub sort of text on the bottle. And it's about looking at ingredients differently that normally would have gone to landfill, or something like the dandelion, which everyone thinks is a weed. And when is a weed not a weed? When it's planted in the right place. So that's really how we got to this spot with the rum.
I think it's fantastic, and we're alluding to a conversation that we'd had, sort of like like one-to-one kind of stuff. But it is kind of the reason I'm loving talking about botanical rums at the moment is because we can celebrate all the process and the flavour pairings and all the work that goes into it without sort of. There are brands out there that sort of try to pretend that their flavoured product is sort of not a flavoured product by grabbing the wrong name, and I don't quite understand it. It's like if you've gone through all that work of creating something about the balance, the pairings, all those things, why not celebrate that? And that's pretty awesome. And so I think there's plenty of people out there at the moment that are looking for it as well, and so an uptake from a consumer point of view. So sounds like we've got the sea coming through somewhere. So apologies if that's hissing on my microphone or somebody else's. I'm not sure. Good evening to everyone else who's joined us. I see the Gin Bandits are enjoying the session so far. It feels actually a very gin heavy audience tonight. It's probably because you two famous people. So the process. So the root and the coffee side of it, the things. This is what the main part. There's more to it than that in terms of.
So that was the inspiration, and we're actually currently planting 750 meters squared of dandelion root at the farm. So the one thing we do as a brand is we always seem to make our life hell, because everything we do is quite masochistic. The easiest thing in the world is to just go and buy your ingredients, but we like to grow them and harvest them, and blessing Martin, who's our sort of farm manager. He's out there. He is. There's Martin with his cap on. He's the guy that gets this stuff in the ground and gets it out of the ground. We'll all pitch him when he's submerged, but in reality, we all try and avoid it because we're doing other things, and Martin's bloody good at getting the job done. There's a list of the other ingredients at the bottom there. The dandelion root, once we've picked it, we bring it up to the farm, we chop it, we have to sort it because some bits are too small for the roasting process, and it's about getting that uniform product into the roaster. So we basically, it's all trimmed by hand, chopped, sorted to bigger chunks, smaller chunks. Smaller chunks we're keeping at the moment, just in case we can come up with a way of roasting them, because otherwise we lose about 40% of the yield that comes out of the ground in that sorting process. But we dry them above the stills in the distillery. So the heat from the still comes up to drying tables and actually dries out the botanicals. They then go to a local coffee roasters in Market Harborough. Those guys then roast, and that was fun, you know, going to visit those guys at Carrera, and we did lots of different batches to try and get the right roast level on the route. So it wasn't just like one roast is fine. We picked and then had to distill each batch of the roasted route to find out which level of roast gave us the right flavour we were looking for in the product. So Jamaican rum is the base, and we do get, I mean, it's relatively neutral, but we do get a little bit of ester, I think, coming through in the product from that. Overripe bananas was a kind of a fairly late addition to the process, but it was one of those eureka moments when I was like, lads, like, I was in the local greengrocers and there was a box of super brown bananas going off. And I was like, what are you going to do with them? And he was like, well, we have to throw them away because no one wants to buy them. And I was like, let's try your bananas in the distillation. So we added the bananas, and it just really gave an awesome mouthfeel, and it took the tropical sort of flavour profile of the rum up as well. Again, but it's waste that we're saving from landfill. So we've got a relationship with a few local grocers where we're taking their waste brown bananas. It's about 25 kilos goes into a distillation. So by weight, other than the rum, it's the biggest ingredient in this product is actually the banana. And we've got the orange peel waste. So that's from a local prepared fruit factory. And they make juice as well as fruit salads. So that is waste that goes into a skip and goes off to landfill. You know, we're saving that from that end use, and it comes to the distillery, and we're extracting additional flavour. And the important thing there is it's fresh. So the amount of volatile oil that we've got coming from that is more than you would get from a dried piece of citrus. You've then got some more classic spice, cinnamon, which is probably more of a custom to be in a spiced rum. Rose is a bit of a weird one, and raises a few eyebrows, and it's quite a lot. I mean, this is by weight volume, so there's a lot of rose goes into the distillation, and that floral note we wanted to add because all of the distillers were convinced that aged rums have there's a rose note that comes through in an aged rum. So rose is one of the ingredients to give that sort of, rather than, you know, putting it into a barrel, to try and get some notes that you would expect to find in a more aged product. Obviously the dandelion root, which is the hero of the show. Szechuan pepper there, give us a bit of mouth structure, a bit of heat and spice in there. Black cardamom is just such a super sexy ingredient to work with. I mean, it honestly, the smell, just that stuff, even before it goes in the still, is just delicious. Allspice. Chamomile is probably an unusual one, and it's something that we want to become self-sufficient in at the farm. We're not there yet, but we're planting more, but that's going to take a while just because of yield and area we need to devote to it. Fresh grapefruit peel, again salvaged from landfill. Homegrown lemon verbena, which is part of our farm-born. You know, we're up to 6 acres of botanicals that we grow at the farm now, which is about 20,000 plants and 750 trees. We're doubling that this summer. In reality, a lot of that, David, is Angelica. We're going to be self-sufficient in our own Angelica because the flavour difference between homegrown and the stuff we're buying in, it's just off the Richter scale, and the volatility from when we harvest it, dry it, and use it compared to, again, the bought-in botanicals we use is just nuts. So yeah, homegrown lemon verbena, sarsaparilla, such a cooling flavour, and that goes into this post distillation as a maceration, but really brings a lot. And I think that's what makes it really the banana and the sarsaparilla for me are the bit that really makes it marry with Coke as a serve. Nutmeg, cassia, and then the pure spring water from the farm, and a bit of sugar. It's 3% sugar, so relatively light. And you can see by weight, it's the lowest ingredient in the whole ingredient stack because they're in weight order. And that's the rum. So it's not overly sweet. I think the botanicals give a sweetness. So I think it tastes sweeter than the amount of sugar that's in there. But it's just I love it as a product. It's one of those, you know, I always feel terribly sort of privileged in these positions that I get to muck about with stills and make super tasty liquids and root them all with authenticity is the most important thing we do as a brand. And as I said to the team, you don't need to make up baloney when you're doing this. I actually said to the team, I said, you don't need a sailor, you don't need a captain, and you don't need a sea monster if you're doing it right. So that's my motto.
No, we do have a rummy join us this evening. Dan Hall's there. He likes to follow along with the mad stuff that we do. But it is, see, Dan, this is exactly it. Like, I've never met Tom before this. It's like I feel like I want to get up there and spend some time in the lab. I'm desperate to know what each of these things sort of smell like.
As soon as we can, you're in, Pete. As soon as we can, we've got to get you to the farm.
It's there's quite a complicated bill on there, as far as I'd say in comparison to some of the spice rums that I know. There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot of flavors that you wouldn't necessarily associate with spice rums, and that's good. It's a contemporary flavor profile. It's kind of, this is something that we were talking about, David and I. Traditional spices, we're past that in the UK. The mainstream, mass market kind of brands might be classed as traditional spice, but there's so many other interesting things going on. You can't just say you don't like spice rum anymore, because there's going to be the one there for you, And I might say, but also 32 quid was actually quite an expensive price. I expected it to be more expensive than that, if I'm honest. So maybe we should grab a bottle while we can before he puts the price up.
Sure. On price, we've ideally we did want to charge more, but we just felt that the rum category was less elastic than gin at the moment. So it's a real low earner for us compared to the gin. And as a small business, we have a disproportionate overhead. So it does dilute margin, but you have to price it according to the category, and we've tried to do that. And at 32, we're probably still at the top end of spice.
You're a full strength spirit as well, though, aren't you? I mean, like a lot of the ones that are inexpensive are low ABV in comparison. So 40% ABV for those that didn't spot it on the website.
But we saw the same thing with gin, right? When you started off with gin and you're at that sort of 35 pound a bottle, like that was the top end. And now you're seeing new products come out and it's 40, 42 for a 500.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So people are willing to pay more if there's a differential, because I mean, like something like this or a gin, either one you're mostly going to be mixing. Actually, this drinks really nicely on its own or just on the rocks, but there's a lot of comparability between the two and how they're drunk, let alone how they're made. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Tom, was the choice of the rum that you had, because you botanicals, but you've chosen a particular rum for that.
We tried lots of different ones. At one point, we were blending in some aged as well, and actually we entered a rum called Rooted in the Rum Masters last year, and we got a silver medal with the one that had a bit of aged in it. So Rooted rum got a silver, but was never launched, and we came away from the age just because of the tighter margins. We couldn't make the commercial stack up on it, is the reality. And that was the real challenge, was to, I think, my hat's always off to, but yeah, I think you have to be an established brand to do this. The guys that are doing rum and they're doing aged rum and they're selling it at a fair price, they are obviously working on really tight margins with that. But we're one of those, it's when you're a challenger brand and you're coming in, we have to put a lot of boot leather and car tires on the ground to actually break through and get a brand to market, and that means you've got quite a high overhead. So we have to be very careful with the ingredients deck. It's a balancing act of flavour, provenance, and profitability within the product. But I think we managed to achieve the flavour profile we wanted without the aged, and that took quite a long time. And then selecting the rum itself, we got samples from, and we at one point, and if Dave Marsland's listening, I don't know if we know Dave, but David, he said it's all about transparency. You have to give it transparency, which is why we've tried to be as transparent as possible. And I had a mission at one point. I wanted to get a distillery name on bottle, But that just proved really, really bloody hard.
So it's from Worthy Park, then, is it?
Well, it's I'm not confirming or denying anything, but to actually get distillery traceability, we found really, really difficult. And we were also advised by a couple of other rum brand owners not to do it, because they said there are times when it can tighten up, so supply can become difficult, especially with aged. So you sort of make a rod for your own back doing that. So we steered, in the end, we gave up on putting a named distillery on there, but we've given it the transparency of, the island that it's from. It was just a process of elimination, David, is the reality. There's such a magnitude of variabilities with different botanicals, different dandelion roasting levels, different rums that we could go with. So it was just a process of elimination and trialing. Basically, optimum flavour combined with optimum sort of cost price is always the goal that you're aiming for, and that's how we ended up with the product that we've got. It's just that we had consistency of supply, it was easy to make, and it was super tasty. So that was the criteria.
Just to kind of summarise on the production, because we've had a lot of detail, but just like the headline, if I put it understood correctly. You've got the rum, you put the rum in the still, and you put some of the botanicals in there. Then you do the distillation, you take your cuts you normally would do. Basically how you'd make a gin, but not using juniper and using rum as the base spirit as opposed to wheat, which is what you usually use, right? And then after that, there's some additional maceration.
There's additional rum added. So once it comes off the still, we add about 50% more rum to that liquid. We cut it to bottle strength, and we do a maceration. And we're doing the maceration with fresh orange peels, more dandelion root, and cassia and sarsaparilla again after the distillation. And different flavour profiles come through. Cassia. All the distillers take the mick out of me on that one as well. They're like, "What's cassia?" But that's where you get the flavour. The colour from. So it looks. We know a lot of spiced rums, they're that colour because they're adding dye. Basically, they're adding caramel colour dye to it. That's natural. It's. I mean, I don't know how uncommon or common it is, but it's 100% natural as a product, which I think is super cool. So there's no flavorings, no essences, no synthetics, and no dyes. It is as Mother Nature intended in terms of the way that we work with Mother Nature.
And I think the nice thing about adding the rum additionally afterwards as well is that tasting the product, we've not really gone through and talked about what it smells like or what it tastes like, but it's you can taste the rum. Like, it's not just like it's kind of hiding in the background. It's definitely there. I think it's quite a smart way to make a botanical rum in this kind of way, so you still get some of that rum characteristic coming through. It's not all about sweetness, it is about complexity. And I think, as we've talked in a couple of different of these sessions recently, the rum is a botanical that's being used in this. It's
100%
harmony between all of these ingredients.
100%.
What are you getting on your glass?
Sorry, was that me? I got lost there for a second. I'll tell you what, the interesting part is I've poured a few glasses and I've kind of sipped through. And the more time you spend with it, the more it changes, because you feel like, I suppose you kind of get used to one botanical or something, and then you look into the next and to the next. And so it's funny, at the moment I've kind of got a kind of a cola kind of vibe that I'm really enjoying at the moment. But there was that kind of I got a tingle on my tongue. Is this just because I'm not well, or is it because it is a botanical?
No, I think Szechuan will be doing that, but also the fresh grapefruit peel that's in the distillation and the maceration. It's going to give you a little bit of that tingly sensation on the tongue for sure.
Particularly towards the finish with the grapefruit, you'll really get that coming through. I'm getting, interestingly at the moment, like quite a lot of the rose and the chamomile, that kind of like hay, like meadow sweet bison grassy kind of note, but it is different each time you kind of approach it. I really love the banana aspect to it. We had, as I'd mentioned to Tom, I didn't put it out on Instagram or anything because I wasn't, we were waiting until today. But we had whenever it's pancake day, Sarah and I always have bananas with our pancakes, and I make up some like caramel, put the bananas in, and then flambe some spiced rum. And so I used this. It's where some of the rum was gone, and it worked really, really well. But it was because I had quite a lot of rum. I was quite liquidy, so I strained it all out, and we ate that, and that was fun. And then we did our mojito talk. And then today we made some more pancakes, and I just had like the liquor, the syrup that was left over. So it was like sugar and the rum and like caramelized banana. And that was just fantastic. And I even put I think I like made a milkshake out of it as well.
Nice. A White Russian pancake.
I always think I drink too much, but then I hang around with Dave and I go like, oh, I'm dabbling in the shallow end. I really am.
Putting it in my food.
Honestly. No, it was something we kind of wanted to share about. I think it is kind of cool. But I think this is to hark back to the process. There's so much effort and things that goes into it, and it all natural and lots of process. It's kind of like it is worth it. And this is something else that helps me to justify, to people why we're interested in talking about this, because it should be reflected. It shouldn't just be dismissed as being another spiced rum, which invariably, and I'm not saying that there's no skill in working with concentrated essences to make a consistent product, because getting that balance is important. If it doesn't drink properly, then it doesn't drink at all. But creating the rod for your own back as you are with seasonal variation straight off the bat, this is it should be celebrated. But I'm sitting here and I realise that, and I get this every time I talk with David as well, is that his nose is so used to picking out botanicals in gins that actually I'm struggle to pick out the botanicals because they're not common in my regular spirit category. I wouldn't have said I've got a bad palate, but it's something you can spend time with and pick things out.
Yeah.
So honestly though, but I mean, how long did you take to bring this one, or where did you draw the line? I mean, with so many permutations, you could go forever.
So
couldn't you?
yeah, well, you literally can, and that's why you kind of have to just stop at some points, because you disappear down a rabbit hole, and it's like Alice in Wonderland where you can go with flavour. So we started the journey on this really October 2019 was when we started, and then probably coming into lockdown 1, when the world turned upside down and we all started making hand sanitizer and stuff like that. We really, really got stuck into the rum and the liquid, and that's how we got it. Well, it's probably just before that, because we got it into the Rum Masters last year, so it would have been slightly before that we got that product away, the rooted, and it evolved over the summer, and it wasn't quite right. We probably dropped the aged section in it around, I don't know, June or July last summer, and then other botanicals we'd sort of started to get really solid on. Sarsaparilla was quite an early one that we really wanted in there, and the black cardamom, and I think Szechuan and cinnamon. Obviously, the dandelion root and the fresh peels were there from the start, because that was the whole premise of the brand, was to use these discarded materials. And then banana was probably the last one, and banana was a November shout last year. So that's sort of how close to where we were, and it just gave body to the liquid. It was still a super tasty liquid where we got to. And if you remember, do you remember when the SpaceX rocket took the astronauts into space? There was like 2 men, and honestly, that day I got a bottle, and this was without the banana. And we had some prototype litre bottles done, right? So I had a litre, and Lois said, there you go, there's something to try that over the weekend. So I went over this like litre bottle of the rum thing, bloody hell, and sat there and watched this space launch in the kitchen whilst tucking into it. And I just kept like, this is lush. And I was like a 5-year-old boy watching this space launch. Tina was just like, look at me, my wife, and she runs the business with me. She's the clever one. She was looking at me, got up. So I was just like, this is amazing. We're sending people up to space in a private space. And I drunk 3/4 of the bottle of this 1 litre bottle in about an hour and a half. And I'd really jumped into it. And I was just as high as a kite on rum, basically. And like, I think we were in lockdown 2, maybe. And that's when I knew it was good. I knew we were getting there at that point, because to drink that much that quickly without really knowing about it until then, I knew about it. Well, once I'd realised, you know, and that's when we were really close. Yeah, and then the banana was an addition after that just added. I think it adds a bit of chunk, and I think it adds a richness. Obviously, it adds a more tropical sort of flavour profile coming in. I think it marries up really well with the orange and the grapefruit in that respect to bring those sort of tropical flavours. Because in some respects, I think you almost get pineapple coming through as well, and there's no pineapple in it. But you can get, it's almost like pineapple upside down cake or pineapple sponge cake starts to come through in it. So yeah,
very cool.
I think what's interesting, and I guess like this is going back to like why people talking about all these botanical rums and spice rums more, is that like, okay, so you've got the rum bit and you've got like, we've chosen the one we want and you're bringing it in, done and dusted. But there's so much story around everything else. So like in many cases, like if something's, you know, a merchant bottled or third party brought in product, there isn't all of this story. But with this there is, and there's all these different like avenues to go down, from the stuff that you're making yourself that you're sourcing on the farm to the stuff, that environmental aspect of some stuff as well. It's all quite an interesting medley of different things, and there's plenty to talk about. And of course, as we've discussed before when we were talking about white rum and these sorts of things, there is more of a challenge to making rum in the UK from scratch than there is in some other climates for getting hold of the raw materials and the climate and all these various different things. So it's quite great. I think it's great to be able to get enthusiastic about some of the things that actually you can do, you can be innovative with and get excited about.
And that was kind of another goal within the project, which was we as a business, we're trying to be as environmental as we can do. So again, 1% for the planet, and that applies to the rum, it applies to our gins. You know, 1% of revenues go to environmental initiatives. But when we looked at what, you know, it's kind of like, oh, do we try and make our own base? The reality is, environmentally, shipping large amounts of raw material from wherever the sugarcane is grown in the world, but you're shipping either molasses or juice. Probably wouldn't be able to ship juice because it would ferment en route and whatever, but molasses or sugar or actual sugar to then ferment in the UK, your carbon footprint of that product is actually going to be quite huge because of the volume you need to ship to then the yield you get from that distillation. We believe that it was easier or better for the environment to actually get that done at source, and you ship the smallest quantity, so you're almost shipping the
higher strength as well.
Yeah, higher strength, absolutely. So we thought that it was. There's different ways you could look at it, and I think everything has a purpose within the market, and everyone should be able to do what they want to do. But we put that lens over it, as to, you know, there are really efficient distilleries doing this. It's a great product. We're going to do what we can do, and we do really well, which is growing the botanicals and creating the flavour, and that's what we're bringing to the process. So it's almost a partnership between the guys in Jamaica that are making the base liquid, and then what we do at the farm, and you get trash and treasure as a result.
Yeah. Hello to Bernie, who's just joined us, by the way.
Hi Bernie. It's a very good point, because I say there aren't, even if you didn't ferment and distill yourself, I mean, there are. It depends how scalable you think this is. I mean, you as a businessman, you must be hoping this is going to really take off. Like, you know, if it really does take off, then yeah, it might be bloody hard work to keep up with it. But you know, I'm sure you've thought about that. But I mean, there are distilleries. I mean, like Cornwall Distillers, for example, have got large capacity, and they could ramp up volume to provide spirit. You know, but it's an interesting concept. You say you have somebody at the company who deals only with environmental concerns. That's their remit.
Exactly. It depends on the lens you want to put on. Obviously, if you make your own base spirit, there's an authenticity angle that you can run at with it, and you're distilling it in a certain way to create the esters and the flavor profiles that you want in the end product. But you know, our angle's always been the farm, the British countryside, and the flavours that we can derive from it. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've really put the environment at the centre of that, because if we screw up the environment, then we haven't got a business anymore, because actually that's what drives our flavour. And as Johnny, who's our environmental and sustainability manager, always says, it's we need to be a part of nature rather than apart from nature. And it's if you want to go really deep into it, it's looking at the P&L of a business, which I think is only starting to happen now within business. And everyone looks at that, oh yeah, we made a profit, but at what cost? Do you know, and it's that total cost to the environment that, you know, and there are businesses all over this planet that have made billions in profit, billions and billions and billions and billions and billions, but there's never compensation paid or a value put on destruction of habitat and environment. So we need to start doing that as businesses. If we don't, you know, business are the only people that are going to sort this, is the reality. And I think once businesses realise the true cost to their sales that will happen through environmental degradation and global warming, etc., then they're all going to get behind it. Because, you know, if you can't pay the shareholders, and it's the big guys that are going to shoulder this more than us little guys. I mean, we can do bits and pieces. They're the guys that can move the dial, all the big lads that are out there. So they have to drive this agenda. When we see like paper bottles coming in, it's really exciting innovation. But if it's going to happen, it can't just be done by one brand. That technology, you know, needs to be permeated out immediately, because if it's a benefit to the environment, it's got to get out there. So that's kind of our shtick, is always to look at it and do our thing with a lens of the environment on there. I mean, even the bottles we're using, we're going to have to change them quite soon, because these are bottles that are left over from a brand that are old. You know, our new bottle shape is this. This is our old bottle shape, but we've got a few left over in a shed. So the reality is we're using these because they were there and they're redundant. But I actually want to use something that's got way more recycled glass in it, or if there's something that's a better alternative for the environment. So we're on a journey with that.
On that point, actually, where do you anticipate your sales being? I mean, in a normal world, the bars would be open, restaurants, and, you know, that would give you a big opportunity. You have a developed sales team, you know, to go out there after that. But at the moment, I guess you're looking at retail. I mean, to be fair, I mean, you're only days old. What am I saying? You've got no idea, have you?
We've literally, I mean, even this is, everyone was like, okay, it's a seeding launch, because we haven't got the money to put behind it. So it's just going to trickle out. We're not going to create a lot of noise. And then people are like, so you're going live on Facebook, Tom? Yeah, we're doing that. And the launch is going to be like this. It's basically how we launched the Distillery 2012, which was knocking on doors and getting it out there. With the on-trade being shut, that limits to retail. And we're trying to focus it on independent retail in the short term. And then once the on-trade does start to open up, then hopefully it's going to be in good independent on-trades and the right accounts. But we know that it's not going to be a unicorn and this enormous thing overnight. It's going to take time, attrition, consistency, and that's the plan at the moment. So we've got very, very low forecasts for the next 12 months for this product, but we're just, as long as we keep making it taste the way it tastes, and, you know, it just starts to get out there, then hopefully organically it'll start to pick up pace.
These are all terms that fit the business quite nicely, aren't they? Are you hoping that this is going to be something that can be picked up for cocktails, or do you just see this as a kind of a spirit mixer, or is that just bartenders and whoever's going to use it?
I think, yeah, exactly. I think most people drink rum with a mixer, don't they? Is the reality. I don't know what the percentage is, but I'd say it's probably in the 90s.
Rum and Coke is a big thing. Certainly in my life.
Yeah, so I think rum and Coke, and it drinks really well with Coke, so that's important. So that's a tick in the box. But I think it's great neat. Do you know what I mean? And I think if it works neat, and if it works under dilution, it's going to be great in short cocktails. And I think, Pete, when we were talking the other day, you said an old fashioned. Totally agree. I think it works really well in an old fashioned.
Kay has echoed me on that one as well.
Yeah.
Your point about drinking lots of it earlier on, you said during the launch you were drinking lots of it, is because I think you got the balance of the sweetness right. There's it'd be interesting to know what it tasted like without the bananas in it, but there is a nice mouthfeel to it, and it's not cloying. It doesn't build up, so you can drink more of it without it catching up on you. I mean, I've got don't hate me, I've just had a 50 ml of rum and spiced rum and a can of Schweppes over ice, and it's drinking perfectly lovely. But also it changes as well with the mixer, and that dilution does allow different elements to come out. So I'm going to finish that and actually get the Coke out. I listened to you just before we went live, going like you're reeling out all the things that Dave's got hidden under the counter there that he's going to pair it with, like.
But not any lime. So I'm going to go and get those now. I'll be back.
Oh, fair play. So what we need to do is need to crowdfund Dave's office to have a fridge and a freezer up there and everything.
Yes.
And more shelving. He's only been in there a month or so,
Yeah, it's less than that, isn't it? It's days since he moved in, isn't it? Yeah.
It feels like it. It feels like I've done a lot of live streams with him from here as well. I promised the rum folks that we will sort of talk about authentic rums in terms of like unmodified in terms of thing, but all the time we've got this. I mean, I don't want to mention other competitors, but another one arrived on my desk like earlier this week, and it's amazing. Like straight away, it's got something different about it, and having a USP on the market stands out. I think I've been, when I go out and do rum trainings with one of the brands that I work for, it's not, I wouldn't say that happens a lot, but you do get people asking you, like, what is the sustainability of this? Lots of bars, depending where they are forced to buy on price. It's it's the economics of the market they're in. If they an £8 cocktail is an £8 cocktail, and you've got to get the best price for the ingredients.
Yeah.
But when people are asking about the environmental aspect of it, I think this is something that's going to happen more and more moving forward. Just down the road from me, we've got Terroir Tapas that keeps winning the Class Bar Awards for its environmental and sustainability kind of impact. We're going to see more of this, so it's kind of, in some respects, you're at the head of the curve. You're there and looking.
But that's great. And if we can inspire and if we can break down doors and we can encourage more people to do it, it's the way we've got to go, isn't it? All businesses need to do this. And I think it's back to that P&L thing. If we constantly look at a specific gross margin and consumers are, over time, we've gotten used to buying cheap products that have been made in a way that hasn't taken the environment into consideration when they're being produced. So there's this whole sort of movement that we're going to need to go through as food and drink producers globally, where we are kinder to the environment, and that will mean that products become more expensive, and we will have to spend more on our food and drink. Because if we don't, the net effect is we're going to cause untold damage to the world. So we need to be more considerate, and within that, we are probably going to have to just shift all prices one way.
Yeah, I'm kind of my background in engineering is kind of I kind of like when people spend a little bit more money on stuff, you get a better product. You just and everyone down the chain. I mean, it's that kind of B Corp thing as well. Everyone down the chain needs to make a reasonable rate of return. Otherwise, we're just kind of you're robbing Peter to pay David. But it's that kind of thing.
It's a false economy. It's total false economy. So I totally agree with you. If we pay a fair price, that fairness comes through the chain. And you mentioned B Corp. I think we're a few points off now applying. So we're really nearly there. So we'll hopefully, touch wood, apparently there's a 6-month validation process at the moment. So hopefully by just after middle of the year, we should be B Corp registered as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I think that's really awesome. We've got kind of, there is no planet B. We got to run with the one we've got.
Yeah, even though there are worryingly about 4 or 5 rovers arriving at Mars at the moment, aren't they? It's just like, what's going on there?
Yeah, let's just strip the UK and the Earth and then head off over there. Yeah. It's something. Is this something you can scale up easily? If this captures public kind of the imagination?
Yes and no. I've challenged with the forecast I've got in for the next 12 months, which I've doubled it for safety, but we need to grow about 700 kilos of dandelion root. So that's the real limiting factor. The peels and banana waste, there's enough of that through contacts I've got in the industry that's a very scalable ingredient in what we're doing. But the dandelion root, that's the real hard one. But you know what? It's also awesome because the flip side of growing lots of dandelion is lots of dandelion flowers. And then you've got biodiversity for pollinators, which is awesome. But also, apparently, vegan honey is made from a sugar syrup maceration with dandelion flowers. So we can make a dandelion sugar syrup that can also probably go into making cool cocktails with the Trash and Treasure Rum. We might be able to do our own bespoke syrup. So that's something that we're looking at too.
You guys are well there. What are you drinking, David? You've very sneakily not made us a cocktail. You made yourself a cocktail.
No. It's a daiquiri again, as we had the other day. But fascinating how much more the banana comes out. Like,
wow.
Really, it's almost got that slightly like banana daiquiri kind of thing going on.
This is my arm being twisted into making a daiquiri after this finishes. All right, I'm not going to try and do it in front. I'm not going to squeeze the limes. Superb. So, how are you drinking it, Tom? What's your preferred sip?
Currently, neat or with Coke Zero. That's the two ways I'm drinking it. A lot of guys in the team love it with ginger ale. So they've been drinking it. I think it's probably about a 50-50 split, actually. We did a tasting on Friday night. We do a monthly town hall, so we get the whole team on it. Basically, if you're not in certain parts of the business, operationally, we've got a few people in, so they all huddle in one room around one screen, socially distanced, but everyone else just dials in on their laptops. And we did a Trash and Treasure tasting on Friday. And it was probably about a 50-50 split between Coke and ginger ale in terms of preference with a mixer. But also a lot of people are doing it, a lot of the entree team are like straight into old fashions with it and daiquiris and loving it. But I'm drinking it either, I'm just sipping it neat or with Coke Zero. I'm really, really, really enjoying it. And Fever Tree mixes that we work heavily with the ginger ale works. Fever Tree, the normal cola, doesn't seem to marry up as well as normal Coke with the Trash and Treasure rum. But the ginger ale is fantastic.
Damo, the man on the street, is really enjoying it. So that's an important validation. Thank you. Very cool. So what else you got on plan, David? Are you got any other drinks plans with this? Any other killer combinations?
During the chat, I was enjoying it with some dandelion and burdock, which to me just seemed like
it makes sense,
an obvious kind of thing, because like I always see like some similarities between dandelion and burdock and root beer, like you get from the US. They have a similar-ish taste, and the sarsaparilla is often what is used for root beer. Sometimes it's sassafras as well, but like there is that kind of connection there. So I think the dandelion and burdock works very well with the dandelion that you've got in there, but also with that sarsaparilla as well. So,
do you know one thing that I've just is dandelion is Dr. Pepper dandelion and burdock in disguise?
I thought Dr. Pepper was fizzy Benline.
I don't know what it is, but like I just wonder whether Dr. Pepper Trash and Treasure sounds very chavvy, but I might give it a go.
I think it's those sort of cherry, nutty kind of general flavour.
Yeah.
Dandelion and burdock. I haven't had that for a really long time. Used to have it as a kid. All the time, but not anymore. Yeah, it's been a long time. I'll have to go looking this out. Have I got to go to Waitrose? Have I? I'll go there.
I think mine came from Asda.
Oh.
This is they're in Hartridges. They're in Petersfield, so they're in Hampshire. They're not that far away from you, Pete.
Keep it local. Well, that's over the border, mate. I can't. Well, I'm not allowed to go over the border. The police lab me. Well, not twice anyway. Not twice in 1 week. But, yeah, cool. Cool. Isn't Dr. Pepper prune? Kay says.
Right, Dr. Pepper prune.
I never thought we'd go there. But then I think this is it. I kind of like layering the same flavour on the flavour. We need something that's complementary. I like the got a zing to this that I kind of enjoy. I mean, it's not citrus, but I suppose it is the citrus. The orange is probably the part I'm kind of getting predominantly like now at this end of the tasting. But maybe a sour, just a nice long bright spice rum sour or something. Just up the going. So very cool. This was fun. I enjoyed this. Dave, we should do more of these things. Let's find other cool people and get them on live. Do you know what I mean?
Other people that haven't launched their products yet.
Let's completely ruin the marketing department's plans for the year.
But But hopefully, lads, we can once it all opens up. Hopefully, in the summer, you can come and pick. Harvest some dandelion up at the farm. And, yeah.
Can we come to your farm and work? Oh, yeah. Oh, anytime. Yeah.
See the angle. Just need 100 kilos today, guys.
No, that'd be good fun. Honestly, it would be good fun. We have oh god, wouldn't it be nice actually to get? I've forgotten. I'm going to get melancholy now. Let's not think about like lockdown. I want to. Like, I can wait. I can wait till summer. It's all right. We can wait till summer.
My question for you, Pete, would be, how would you pair this if you were going to drink it with some Velvet Falernum?
Just more Velvet Falernum and soda water. I think, you know.
I know you like to get it in every video.
Well, if I can do, absolutely. And Tom, I'm going to send you a bottle of John D. Taylor's Velvet Falernum, and
sounds
we'll
good.
Come up with a perfect serve. Dan's come up with the banana daiquiri, 2 ounces of the rum,
Lovely.
½ ounce Tempus Fugit, creme de liqueur, lime, demerara syrup, garnished banana slice. Yes, fine.
Nice.
I'll actually, while we've got just a few minutes left, I will say that I'm the next Spice Rum Club that we'll be holding down here, which will be the second. I am planning on putting this one in there. Is this one, the pre-production one that I had in the bottle, is it a little different to what we're buying on the market now?
You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know the difference. Yeah.
So for those that are interested in trying without the worrying about spending like a miserly £32, then you can spend 25 quid and join my Spice Rum Club. get different ones as well. But no, it'd be kind of interesting to get this in front of people because of the angle and everything else we got there. So I have the added benefit that I can talk about it for a little bit and then say, no, just if you want to get all the details, you can watch this live stream that we did that's going to be on Facebook, and you can come back and get all the details afterwards. It's a resource, including all the swearing. Cool. Have we got any questions from the audience? I know we've got a few people in that are coming. It's I don't mind saying this now. I've had a couple of drinks while we've been doing it, but you know, from the rum channels we have, that people can be a little bit sniffy about spiced rum in general, and I think this is when we highlight products like this and the processes you go through to making them. Maybe people will take them a little more seriously, and I think actually that will help develop the market in general. So you know, you're not the first person out there to go with something like that's more considered, but this is quite different to other products I've had. So I'm kind of hoping that you're going to kind of lead the way a little bit in that idea, especially, you know, from an environmental point of view.
We'll try, and I think, well, David, I mean, you can agree or disagree. We kind of did that in gin, and we brought a lot of innovation to the gin category, which kind of actually changed gin, how gin was done. It was a collective thing as well, but we were pretty much the first guys to start doing like flavored, but naturally flavored gins, which is now 40% of the gin category. So I think if we can bring that authentic innovation, unfortunately, with all authentic innovation, it brings a long tail of non-authentic sort of innovation that's sort of masquerading and pretending to be that. But listen, as long as it's out there, it gives the consumer choice, doesn't it? And that's the main thing. And if it builds excitement and it builds a following, that's just good for rum in general.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also going to reach out to other people because of your connection. So I think it's probably going to grow the spice rum, flavored rum category because it's going to bring in a new audience. You know, your marketing message will reach people that other rum brands won't reach. They're just not, just haven't got that dialed in. So exciting times. If we were to end it about now, we clip it just under an hour and I can put it on Instagram. I'm just saying. Without any editing.
Go for it. We'll share it.
Fantastic. David, though, quick, you got 30 seconds, mate, if anything you want to add.
My quick thing was, and it'll be yes or no to Tom, when it comes to botanical rum, is the thing about botanical rum that you have to distill at least some of the botanicals.
Oh, that's right. That's an hour out. Don't worry about it. You take your time.
I think it's right. I mean, we spoke about this a few days ago, David, didn't we? I think spiced and botanical, I think a simple way to separate, and we call this spiced botanical, so both, but I think distillation and maceration. And if you look at them as spiced rum tends to be more of a maceration and botanical rum tends to be more of a distillation. But I mean, we could argue that for days.
I would totally agree. And actually, Pete, we're still under an hour because it's 59 and 30 seconds. So
Right, I'm going to say,
see you later. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, gang. Cheers.